Welcome back to part 9 of setting up the Centre of Excellence core components within a Dataverse for Teams environment. So in this video, we're going to kind of round up off the core components area of the Centre of Excellence by talking through how you would go about updating the Centre of Excellence, which is something that it's recommended you would leave no longer than 3 months between versions, mainly because the longer you leave it, the more risk there is to that update in terms of the amount of differences. In terms of when updates are released, it's on a monthly cadence and tends to be released within the first week of a month. We find ourselves here within our Centre of Excellence team, within the Admin Command Center app. And one thing I wanted to call out, if you click on the little support person, it will also tell you the version here, although there seems to be an issue with the app there, which you could report, where it kind of says installed on, which presumably should give you a date. So you can get to the release notes from here. The other way is by going to the Github repository, and you would get there by going to github.com/Microsoft/COE-starter-kit. Once within here on the home page, what it's recommended to do is if you click on where it says Unwatch 47 there, click on Custom, select Releases, and click Apply, and that will mean that you'll get notified every time there's a release to the account that you've signed into GitHub with. Now, in terms of accessing the latest release, if we click on the link here underneath Releases, we can see that this is the September one. It will give you handy links in terms of setting all of this up. You'll notice that the ALM accelerator is a different component utilized to make a complete kind of starter kit for your ALM purposes. So the next key bit we're going to look at is the release note. So you're going to want to look at this from the perspective of, are there any features coming up that would hinder what we currently use the Centre of Excellence for? And equally, are there any issues we've got that would be fixed, which going back to that 3-month point, you might want to update more frequently to resolve the issues. And arguably, I'd say if you can, and you've not massively customized the Centre of Excellence, which for some of the areas isn't recommended, then maybe if you can stick to a monthly cadence, you may be better off. Of course, test it. Then we get to our COE Starter Kit elements. So we've got features, others, and bugs as the categories. Once happy, we can click on download the latest available versions here, and you'll notice that if I just come back to the COE D4T standing for Dataverse for Teams, you'll notice here that effective October 2022, they're not really going to invest in this area. So they're clearly pushing people to, if you want the Centre of Excellence, put it in a fully fledged Dataverse environment, which is a shame. It's almost as if Microsoft were watching, but what can you do? So you would download the file by clicking on it and then clicking on download. So imagine we've done that. I've already done that ahead of time. The downloaded zip, you would extract. And in our case, we would be looking to re-import from that extracted updated version zip file, the core components for Teams .zip file. The next step, once we've got that far, so we're happy with what's going to be released in that update, we've downloaded the update, is if we come back into the Command Center admin app, if we click on this flow icon here, just something that caught me out, and just to make sure, is within here, there is an admin pipe sync template v3 solution metadata flow, which I'm just going to find. So here we go. This is critical that this is on and has been run before this will actually be populated. So say it's populated, the next consideration is unmanaged layers. So what do we mean by unmanaged layers? So you start off with your managed solution that this is, and to handle a layer of any customizations that may have been made, on top of that is stacked an unmanaged layer. So the recommendation from Microsoft is all of these critical admin pipes in template v3 flows, they're critical to building up the data that kind of drives the rich data set and information that we get from the Center of Excellence. And to update, there's certain elements. So if we just start from the beginning, so there's, when you upgrade, it's either going to get stacked as a layer on top, or if it's a model-driven app or say a Dataverse table, they have the capability to do something which is called merge. Now, I believe that if you use the classic solution editor, which is still available in a full Dataverse environment, not a Dataverse for Teams, you may get the option that even with those unmanaged layers, to still kind of overwrite them. Whereas for the most part, and certainly in the case of Canvas apps and flows, what Microsoft say is that any customized area for the update to fully do what it needs to do, you need to remove those unmanaged layers. So the reason we're here is that if there is an unmanaged layer, this app should signify this by having an icon. So not this flag icon, there'll be another icon, and clicking on that icon will take, this is the classic editor. I did try and see if there was a backdoor way of getting here for a Dataverse for Teams environment, but because you've not got that, although you can get that from the Teams session, it doesn't work. I've tried. So coming back to the point here, so if we click, for example, on one of the elements, say it flagged it as having an unmanaged layer, if you go to advanced and then see solution layers, this is going to show us the makeup. So here we've just got one, whereas if there was another one on top of it that was unmanaged, you would have the ability to remove that customization, and that's the state Microsoft want it to be in. Although what I have already done in this environment, just for completeness, is I have already upgraded this. So this was 3.22, now it's 3.26. And there was a lot of flows that I did customize just purely, when I was changing the values from I think 10,000 or whatever the limit was to 5,000. I have since actually bought a per user license. That's no longer, I don't need to do that anymore. And to be honest, that has gone in, and for a while you'll see two of them side by side even after the import is seemingly finished. So I'm just going to click on one of the flows that I know I didn't remove the unmanaged layer on, because in the end I just thought I'm just going to roll over the top of it and see. So yeah, so you can see that this has still got that unmanaged layer. So the way it should work in an ideal world is if any of these are flagged as unmanaged, particularly the sync templates, because they're going to be the main elements that are updated, be that for performance reason or other, you really don't want to customize those. If you see them unmanaged, you'll have a link. It'll take you to similar to this. You click on the unmanaged layer, remove active customizations, and then once you're happy that none of them are showing an unmanaged layer, you would come into solutions within your environment, and then you would do import solution, browse. You'd go So you may not see this in File Explorer, but I've gone into the extracted folder that we downloaded from GitHub. I'm selecting the core components teams. There are other elements, but we're just dealing with core components here. Click Next. It should pick up on the fact that this is there's already a solution. So it'll do this as an upgrade as opposed to a fresh import. So you can see here it's saying it's going to update these. We'll click Next. And then we'd go import, but I'm not going to do that because I've already done it ahead of time. If we look at the history, we'll see that we've got our Center of Excellence Core Components teams import job here. So that's it in a nutshell. As I say, there are other solution files beyond just the core components. So you essentially have to do the same for those, which we'll maybe cover off in a future video. The other thing to call out, where I mentioned that you don't want to customize the sync templates, what Microsoft recommend is that for those aspects, you actually raise it with them as a feature request and look to get it baked into future updates. They do acknowledge that you can extend and expand upon the Center of Excellence. And again, check the documentation. They've got a good article or articles as to how you would go about that while still updating it. But the general gist of it tends to be you would still look to use the updates to update the core components that you don't customize, and just be very specific with where you do want to customize. And then you have to have a strategy where you're updating the core components, if you will, but still keeping your customizations intact. So that in a nutshell is how you would carry out an update for the Center of Excellence and keep on top of the future releases. Thank you for watching.